So I'm quite new to the YouTube community, but what I seem to have realized recently is that there's something of a tradition to create these videos called tags or vinyl tags amongst the vinyl collecting community. By the way, I'm not one of them. I only collect CDs. As I've said before in previous videos, if I was to start collecting vinyl, my family would definitely be on the streets. So yeah, this whole idea of like creating a tag, which is kind of like a list of questions or prompts that you think about and share some thoughts on. And this chap, Mark Morris from the US, has done one specifically for the Beatles, a brand new one for 2026. And I didn't watch his, I watched Beatle Dustino's first, and then I went on to watch his. And it was a lot of fun. So I thought, well, that sounds like a nice way to spend an evening. So that's what you guys have the pleasure of watching right now. My response to Mark Morris's Beatles Vinyl Tag for 2026. Let's do the shtick. Hello, hello, and welcome to Apple Jams, your Beatles and solo Beatles hangout. I'm so glad to see you here. So glad you could come. I have one little baby request, and that is, if you would, please me by smashing a like on this video and subscribing if you haven't already. That would really help me if you can. So I'm going to jump straight into it. So the first prompt is show and talk about your favorite Beatles acquisition of 2025. It can be a record, a collector's item, a Beatles product, etc. So just sneaking in right at the start of 2025 is my favorite Beatles acquisition. Probably, I mean, I've got quite a lot, but it's definitely up there in terms of like all-time favorite Beatles acquisitions. This is the Super Deluxe edition of Revolver, the CD version. And I haven't got many of the Super Deluxe editions of the Beatles. They are really expensive. So I have been buying the 2-disc versions. But when it came to, I've got this and Let It Be, which is just up there, which is why I looked up to the top of the camera there. Let It Be was relatively cheap. So I was, I felt all right about getting that one. This one was a little bit more expensive, but I still got a good deal on it. I had to get Revolver. It's my favorite album. And if I was going to get any of them at all, then it was going to be Revolver. And I'm so glad that I did. I mean, this is such a premium package. And what I really like about this is, as a CD collector, we kind of miss out on the kind of like the large blown up album covers and album artwork that vinyl collectors get. And so like if I pull this out of the box here, you can see that obviously it's as big as a vinyl record, and they've actually packaged it as if it replicates the vinyl record as well. I don't know if you can see that. Is that upside down? How embarrassing. There we go. And yeah, they've made it look exactly the same as the vinyl record did back in the day. I know that because I've seen my dad's version of it. So yeah, long story short, my favourite acquisition of 2025 is the Revolver CD Super Deluxe Edition. Look at that, beautiful. So question number 2 is show an artist or band on the Apple label other than the Beatles or solo Beatles. When possible, show the label. Unfortunately, I haven't got any other Apple artists. I know that Billy Preston's one of them. James Taylor is one. I don't have any other Apple artists other than the Beatles in my collection, a limited collection to be fair. So I'm putting in a substitute here. Mark was good enough to have 10 questions, but also a number of substitute questions you could put in if you didn't want to answer any of those. So my substitution is a solo Beatles song that is just as good as any of the other Beatles songs. And I'm not going to give you just one. I'm going to give you a solo Beatles song by each of the solo Beatles that I think, in my opinion, is just as good as anything by the Beatles. Starting with John Lennon, and it's from Double Fantasy. And it's Woman. What a cracking tune that is. And I genuinely think that that is just as good as anything that the Beatles put together. One of his greatest love songs by far. And coming from Paul McCartney, I'm going to go with, from the Ram album, Dear Boy. Now, there's so many songs on the Ram album that I could have chosen here, but I've gone with Dear Boy because to listen to it, it's fantastic. The sophistication of those harmonies, that's Beach Boys' Pet Sounds level stuff. From George Harrison, from the All Things Must Pass album, I've gone with Beware of Darkness. Now, this is a particular favourite of mine at the best of times, and I think it's just as good as anything that he made for the Beatles. And last but not least, Ringo, from the Ringo album. Anyone guess? Yeah, Photograph. Absolutely cracking song. Well worth considering, just as high up as any of the Beatles songs. Now, question 3 is in 2 parts, and it's to do with lyrics. Show an album that have a song with lyrics that you A, particularly like, or B, which make you cringe. So, yin and yang, basically. I've gone with, from the Magical Mystery Tour album, All You Need Is Love, which of course was released as a single as well. The line in question, I mean, like, All You Need Is Love. What a cracking song that is. The sentiment of it is so positive and affirming, and I love that about the Beatles. You know, if you were going to take anything away from them as a message, it would be love, and what says that more perfectly than a song like All You Need Is Love? And the lyrics in question, I mean, I could choose so many. There's nothing you can do that can't be done. There's nothing you can sing that can't be sung. You know, all of these positive, affirming messages that just make you, if you think about them for a second, you just think, yeah, anything is possible if you really put your mind to it. But the one that really gets to me is, there's nowhere you can be that isn't where you're meant to be. And I've always interpreted that as, like, you know, sometimes life isn't what you expect of it. Sometimes things go wrong, and sometimes you find yourself in holes, and, you know, you think, how did I get here? And, you know, how do I can't necessarily see a way out of this. And you can get a bit despairing, and, you know, things like that. And that positive message of, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. Everything will work out in the end. There is nowhere you can be that isn't where you're meant to be. It just sometimes feels quite spiritual to me, you know, like John's speaking about, there's a plan. Do you know what I mean? You are going to be all right, and everything is going to turn out all right. It might not seem like it right now, but it will. So yeah, that's a lyric that really speaks to me. On the flip side, and I mentioned this in my previous video called the Brown album, which, should we put a little link up? And is it on this side? I hope so. From Rubber Soul, and from the song Think for Yourself, there is a line that goes by George Harrison that goes, although your mind's opaque, try thinking more, if just for your own sake. Yeah, kind of makes me cringe because it's such a clunky line. I don't think anybody has ever spoken like that. Although your mind's opaque, try thinking more, if just for your own sake. Now, number 4 is display a book or books that you would recommend to other Beatles fans. I've gone with just the one, but it's this one. It's called Revolution in the Head. It's by a chap called Ian MacDonald. I've had this book for an awful long time. You probably won't see, but it's very well thumbed, and yeah, it's absolutely cracking. It's basically like a chronological story of the Beatles, but told through their songs, and like it goes into quite a lot of detail on how the songs were put together. You know, who did what. And there's, you know, some critique of the songs in there as well, which is always really interesting. Don't always necessarily agree, but always fascinating to hear what other people think. This is why I'm doing this, to be honest. And yeah, really comprehensive. Every single song up to a point is in here. They got the anthology songs in here, but this is an edition that was before Now and Then. I don't know if he's updated it since then. And there's also a really comprehensive chronology in the back of here as well. So yeah, can really recommend Revolution in the Head by Ian MacDonald. Now, number 5 refers to the anthology. The question is, did you buy the 2025 anthology and box sets, excuse me, in any form? And discuss your decision. So with this, I went through a little bit of a journey, and I'll put some links to 1 or 2 of my anthology videos that you can check out, which goes into a bit more detail. But basically, I decided that when they announced that they were going to do all the anthology, re-release the anthology, but include Anthology 4, I decided to wait it out because I had a feeling that they weren't going to get away with just putting them all in one box set and not releasing Anthology 4 separately. And because I already had Anthology 1 to 3, I thought, well, I'll just buy Anthology 4 and that'll do me. So I bought Anthology 4. Then I heard the Anthology collection and I thought, oh, this does sound good, doesn't it? But I still made the decision that I was going to stick with it and just just have my original 1990s version of Anthology and otherwise supplement it with Anthology 4. And then I saw somebody selling it on eBay for quite cheap, and I thought, you know what, I'll have a punt. And would you believe it? It paid off. I actually won Anthology 4 collection. So in the end, no regrets. It was always going to niggle at me that I didn't have, that I'd have Anthology 4 sat next to the fat boxes, which don't all match. I know it's very petty, but that's just the way I am. And I was able to sell on Anthology 4 to a friend of mine as well. So I got some of the money back, and my friend got a copy of Anthology 4 out of it. So everybody's happy. There it is. So the next prompt is, name a solo Beatles song that you would have liked to have seen get the full Beatles treatment, all 4 Beatles working together to build up the song. Show the album on which the song is featured. Now, when I was thinking about this, I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice to have it be one of those kind of like self-referential songs that some of them did? I don't think John ever did. Somebody, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But of course, from George, we had When We Was Fab. From Ringo, we had early 1970. And then like pretty much everything he did towards the later end of his career, which always seemed to be referring back to the Beatles. And then from Paul, and again, a few different examples. One that comes to mind was That Was Me. But the one that I ended up going with, which I think is an absolutely wonderful song, is from the album New, which is here. I've got the this version of New. I've also got the regular version upstairs. And the song is Early Days, which is a great song at the best of times. It has Two of Us vibes, especially in that early bit, which is just acoustic guitars. It would be quite nice to get, that kind of like dueling guitar kind of sense from Two of Us with John and Paul playing at the same time. I mean, like, the song lyrically is more about John and Paul and, their songwriting partnership and the early days of writing together in Liverpool. And, obviously the message of the song is, you can say what you like, but I lived through those days. I know what happened. So yeah, it's more... it's to do with like whether Paul was rightly attributed to the songwriting or whether it was John, and Paul's obviously got a bit of a chip on his shoulder about that kind of thing, and historians getting it right or wrong, and he's kind of basically saying, well, I was there so I should know. But if he expanded it out a bit, maybe wrote a song about George joining or Ringo joining, and then can you imagine if like you listen through to that song and it starts with Paul on his own and then John joins in and then the drums start up and it's Ringo and maybe George comes in with a slide guitar solo or something like that. And then imagine what it'd be like when you get to the point where they sing the lines, may sweet memories of friends from the past always come to you when you look for them. In the record, it's got 3-part harmony already. So put John, Paul and George together doing that, and oh my goodness, can you imagine how emotional that would be with the sentiment of the song and those voices coming in to blend again? Oh, it sends shivers down the spine just thinking about it. So yeah, in the fantasy world where the Beatles are back together, and they're tackling any of the Beatles solo stuff, it would be Early Days from New by Paul McCartney. So the next prompt is to do with picture discs. So this is a vinyl specific one. I haven't got any picture discs, so I'm going to have to substitute one in here. So the substitute that I've gone for is there a particular Beatles song or album that brings back a specific strong memory for you? If so, feel free to share. If not, relate a time when you realised you were becoming a Beatles fan. So these two kind of go hand in hand for me, because the Beatles album that I've chosen for this is Help. Now, the story for me regarding Help and why it means so much to me is that Red and Blue, notwithstanding, Red and Blue was the songs that I grew up listening to in the car when we were on car journeys. That was always ever present in the car. But the Beatles' Help was the first proper album that I came into contact with. The story of that is that my dad was a member of a kind of music subscription service. I don't know if they have it in America or whatever, but you basically sign up to the service. They send you a number of CDs in the post. If you want to keep them, then you do. If you don't, you send them back. And one of them that they sent through was Help by the Beatles. And because I'd listened to the Beatles in the car, I noticed this and I was like, okay, I'll give that a whirl. And I ended up really liking it. So I asked my dad if we could keep it. And yeah, so I did. It's not the best Beatles album. album by any stretch, but it was absolutely crucial in getting me hooked on the Beatles. I mean, Help is a wonderful pop song in itself. Then you've got to Hide Your Love Away. You've got You're Gonna Lose That Girl, Ticket to Ride. I've Just Seen a Face, which is still a favourite, and Yesterday, which is an absolute all-time classic, of course. So yeah, that's my story of this album, Help. So prompt number 8 is, for some reason you are condemned to listen to just one Beatles compilation album for the rest of your days. What do you choose? Show the compilation. This was an easy choice for me. There's a lot of Beatles compilations, but if I'm condemned to only listen to one compilation for the rest of my life, then I want to make sure it's got as many songs on it as possible. And to that end, it's going to be Red and Blue, this very specific box set, because I'm cheating slightly, but I reckon this counts as one. So that's what I'm going for. I've done a video on Red and Blue. I've made a version of Red and Blue, which I think is superior. You may have different opinions. Many people have. Check out this video here to watch that. I don't think anybody can deny that this compilation, especially expanded version, has absolutely tons of great Beatles tracks. And if I'm only going to listen to one, may as well make sure I get the most out of it. So prompt number 9 is, do you feel there is an underrated Beatles song? And if so, show the album on which it appears and explain why you feel it's underrated. So I recently did a video called The Brown Album, which was my interpretation of the worst of the Beatles. It was quite controversial, but at the end of the day, it's just my opinion. Who the hell am I? It doesn't really matter, it's just for fun. But one thing that came up was the fact that I didn't put one particular song from Abbey Road on my list. And the reason for that is because I really like it and I really enjoy it. And that song is, from Abbey Road, Maxwell's Silver Hammer. Now, I can almost hear people screaming at me right now, the number of people that seem to detest this song. Now, what I will say is that I agree in the sense that, like, it's surely the weakest song on Abbey Road, and I don't really think it should be on Abbey Road. It sticks out like a sore thumb, especially amongst the rest of the album, but I don't think that makes it a bad song. I mean, like, some of the wordplay in it is absolutely fantastic. So for what it is, I always have a good time listening to it. I just think it shouldn't have been on Abbey Road. It should have been a B-side. So there you go. My underrated Beatles song is Maxwell's Silver Hammer from Abbey Road. And the final prompt is, Beatles singles. Show a Beatles 45 with cool picture sleeves or a picture sleeve from a country other than where you reside. It's another vinyl specific question, so I can't do that one. So I'm just going to skip ahead to another one of the substitutions, which isn't really a question. It is, shout out some of your favorite Beatles or vinyl channels. Nice and easy. I'm going to start with Beatle Destino, who I've mentioned before. I saw his video before doing mine, and I wasn't even going to bother, to be honest, but I enjoyed his so much that it inspired me to get my thoughts out there as well. So Beatle Destino has got loads of great videos, really interesting guy, really great content, so go and check him out. I'd also like to shout out Beatley Tone from Beatley Tone's Beatles channel, who was really encouraging when I first started out, actually. I went onto one of his live streams and told him that I was thinking about starting a channel. He was really friendly and encouraging about that. And again, his content's really great, really cracking guy, so go and check him out as well. And the guy that really got me started was a chap called Andrew Dixon, who everybody's going to know. He's had a bit of time out of the YouTube game for a bit. It's great to see him back and making more videos. You're already subscribed, come on, but keep an eye on him. I'm sure he's got some great stuff coming. And that's it. My response to Mark Morris's vinyl tag. I'll get this sent over to him. Hopefully I've inspired you to do your same, even though I'm a CD collector and not a vinyl guy. I hope you've enjoyed that. Leave any thoughts in the comments. I'd really appreciate a like if you wouldn't mind as well, or a subscribe if you haven't already. But otherwise, I'll say ta-ra for now, and thanks for watching.